The Unspoken Truth About Pests on AgDay, brought to you by AgriSure Traits. Combine the power of AgriSure Duracade plus AgriSure Viptera trait stacks to control 16 yield-damaging above and below ground pests.
The weather can play a big role in how much pest pressure a field experiences during a given season. Today, in a new series of reports, The Unspoken Truth About Pests, we look at how timing, temperature, and rainfall can affect pest pressure each year. Drought and dry weather continue to plague farmers in the northern plains and northwest, and with it, pest pressure, like the grasshoppers taking over some Montana fields and showing up on radar.
Particular problems that we tend to have during very dry weather are spider mites and grasshoppers.
Be it grasshoppers or Japanese beetles, weather is playing a role in pest pressure again this year.
Weather is always very influential on pest pressure. A lot of pests, as far as even their emerging time, is heat unit based.
We track insects by insect GDUs, so that becomes part of their development, so we know when the actual infestation is going to take place.
Farm Journal agronomist Missy Bauer and Ken Ferry both say the lack of rains early are having an impact now.
For us locally, we did not get heavy rains during the rootworm hatch, so there is a window of opportunity to drown rootworm if the soil is saturated right there at the hatch. We did not get that, so we're seeing a little bit more rootworm pressure from that situation there.
The other major factor? Wind.
Other things that in the weather that affect insects is those that blow up from the south. So you're going to need southerly winds to bring in, for instance, our cutworm populations and maybe our southwestern corn borer, stuff like that.
Into our area, and then once they get here, then we again goes back to heat unit based on when things actually hatch after the eggs are laid from the moths.
But this year,
we haven't seen dramatic impacts of the weather on pest populations this year.
University of Illinois Extension entomologist Nick Sider agrees. Early flooding rains do impact pest pressure.
If you have flooding conditions when those eggs are hatching, you can have pretty dramatic negative impact on that population and reduce corn rootworm pressure. We haven't had either of those situations this year, but those are prime examples.
As farmers and agronomists hit the field to scout, there's at least one major misconception about weather's impact on insects.
I think probably one of the big misconceptions is the winter. People always say, oh, it was this type of winter or that type of winter, and that's going to influence my pest pressure. There might be a little bit of truth to some of that, but remember, so many of these pests do overwinter in other places, get blown in with the moths and the wind currents.
Truth that holds constant from Michigan to Ohio and beyond.
The thing that I get asked every time we have a cold winter is, will the cold winter affect the insect populations? Will there be fewer insects? And I'm always very sad to tell people, no, not really. I do get this question a lot, but the fact is insects are very well adapted to live in the climates where they occur, even the extremes of those climates.
Ferry says farmers also think a quick change in the weather can cause new pest problems.
So 2 dry days doesn't create, for instance, an aphid or spider mite issue, and 2 wet days doesn't create a disease issue in the corn.
Instead, he says, by the time farmers often notice heavy infestations, it's likely been a problem for weeks.
And we have to look at, most time we're looking at 2 to 3 week weather patterns that set us up. So it's not as quick as some people want to believe.
The weather can change on a dime, but dealing with pest pressure is a more calculated endeavor.